Alright, so Derek Chisora defeats Otto Wallin by unanimous decision. One of the scorecards was, I think, 117, 109, which is pretty much what I had it. One of them had it like 114, 111 or something, which is pathetic scorecard, really. Otto Wallin, at best, won maybe 2 3 rounds in this fight. So when I see the 117, 109 scorecard, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much spot on. I said in my prediction video going into this fight that I suspected Otto Wallin might do enough to win, but he probably won't get the decision. And actually, funny enough, going into this fight, I was under the impression that this was a 10 rounder. So I was thinking, okay, 10 rounds, Chisora will probably nick enough rounds to win, like a 96, 94, 97, 93 scorecard. It's actually a 12 rounder. So when I seen that, I was thinking, oh, how is that going to work out? Now, this was Chisora's last fight in the UK. This was his 49th professional fight. So his next fight, if he has a next fight, it'll be most likely in Africa. Against who, we don't know. But going in there against Otto Wallin, it was originally, when they were talking about this fight, it was meant to be Jarrell Miller. It was reported Jarrell Miller. They then announced that it would be Otto Wallin. So I was kind of like, okay. Wallin is, look, he's not certainly not the best fighter in the heavyweight division, but he's negative. He can be a little bit of a spoiler. And I thought, stylistically, when you look at that against Derek Chisora, who's a come-forward pressure fighter, he throws a lot of shots, he loops a lot of shots, even against a southpaw like Wallin, who is open to the right hand, most likely Wallin will have enough to outpoint Derek Chisora. He didn't. Wallin never really looked in this fight. He had ample notice, but he looked, even though he was 239, he looked fleshy. He didn't look like he had the stamina in his gas tank. Stark contrast to the Otto Wallin who fought Tyson Fury nearly 6 years ago. He didn't look good at all in there. I mean, I would say he looked every bit as bad, if not worse, than he did against Anthony Joshua. The only difference being Anthony Joshua was able to stop Otto Wallin, Derek Chisora didn't. However, Derek Chisora was able to drop Otto Wallin twice in this fight. Anthony Joshua couldn't drop him at all. Otto Wallin barely did anything. The only worry for Derek Chisora was there was a clash of heads in, I think it was round 5, but the clash of heads didn't really worry Chisora because he was well ahead. It was ruled accidental, so it would have went to the scorecards. It didn't really matter. Chisora was just out working on Wallin. He was pressuring him. Wallin was. So I basically said in the preview for this fight that if you ever seen Otto Wallin versus Murat Gassiev, Otto Wallin in that fight, he really didn't do much. He just kept jabbing. He looked, to be honest with you, he looked slow. He looked lethargic. He didn't look that good. Gassiev just looked every bit as bad, quite frankly. He looked every bit as bad. He couldn't pressure correctly. He couldn't let his hands go. He couldn't really do anything. And I was looking at that thinking, okay, Wallin looks terrible. Gassiev looks even worse. Fast forward 3 months, he still looks terrible, and now he's fighting Anthony Joshua, who is letting his hands go. Problems. In this fight right here against Derek Chisora, he looked terrible, and Derek Chisora was letting his hands go. He was letting the big right hands go. He was looping the shots, and Wallin, as I said, looked terrible. So Chisora was able to land. He was able to sweep the first few rounds. We get to round 9, and Derek Chisora, Chisora's been, it's been claimed by several fighters, Dave Allen, Alexander Usyk, etc., that Chisora is one of, if not the biggest puncher they've ever fought. Now, Chisora's knockout ratio, it's not stellar. I think his knockout ratio was in the 60%, which, if you're looking at that from the outside looking in, and obviously the losses as well, but in terms of the wins, you're like, oh, he's not that big a puncher. Not necessarily the case. So your knockout ratio, it might not be the best, but that doesn't mean you can't hit hard. There are journeymen out there who hit harder than, most professional fighters who are, at the top level. And Chisora, I think, fits into that category. So round 9, he loops an overhand right. It grazes, it really did. It grazes Otto Wallin on the top of the head. He goes down. It's a 10-8 round for him. Chisora, I think at that point knew, right, I've got this in the bag. So he slowed down for rounds 10 and 11. Because there, with maybe round 4 or 5, you might be able to give them rounds to Otto Wallin. I say might be, generously. because Chisora was in it for pretty much the whole fight. So Chisora kind of slowed down after that knockdown. Although saying that round 10 he did pour it on Wallin. The referee ruled in round 10 that Chisora, he was pouring it on Wallin, he was going to head and body, he was opening up, he was letting the combinations go. He ruled that Chisora hit Wallin low. Now he didn't dock a point or anything like that, he was just like, it's a low blow. I didn't see any low blow from Chisora in this fight, to be honest with you. He was throwing shots certainly at Wallin's body. Maybe some of them were borderline, if even. But to rule it a low blow, I thought, that's a bit harsh. And Wallin saw the end of the 10th round. 11th round, he had a good round. Round 12, Derek Chisora opened up again. And yeah, he had Wallin down again. So we had Wallin down twice. Now, as far as I'm aware, Wallin, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he's only been down in this fight. Because he wasn't down against AJ. He quit against AJ. Never down against Tyson Fury. Never even looked close to going down. Chisora had him down twice. Derek Chisora looked good in there. And I say that with a bit of worry because I don't want Chisora to look good. I worry about his speech. I worry that he's sticking around too long. But in terms of a fighter who's near the end, he looked quite good. Otto Wallin is levels, and I mean levels, above Ebenezer Tete and Dylan White. Absolutely. I mean, like, he didn't struggle with him, but he couldn't put a dent in him. I mean, Tete was still coming on come the end of the fight. Derek Chisora and Otto Wallin, mind you, would have handled him like that. So if Chisora is thinking of fighting Dylan White in his final fight, easy work. It's quite remarkable, really, that Derek Chisora, at this point in his career, 41 years old, all these hard fights, 13 losses, still probably has more in the tank than Dylan White. But it seems evident that he does. Derek Chisora moving on for his 50th fight. I don't know what he's going to do, but in this fight right here, think of it like this. His last two fights, he's beaten Joe Joyce. And say what you want to say about Joe Joyce, he only had two losses at the time to Zhang Zhang, both fights to Zhang. And now he's beaten Otto Wallin. His only losses were to Fury and AJ. So he's doing not too bad. If he goes in there and he fights Francis Ngannou, if he goes in there and he fights Dylan White next, well, honestly, you'd have to make him favourite. You would. You generally have to make him favourite. So Chisora, although this is the end of his career, he's going out on a high. He's going out on a high. He's not going to challenge for any title or anything like that. He's not going to fight Usyk again or Dubois. God forbid he fights Dubois. But nevertheless, he is still doing something. If nothing, he's doing something. So fair play to him. He still has... It's crazy, really. This is a guy who's been knocked out a bunch of times. He's been in so many tough fights. But he still has something. If nothing, he has something left in the tank. And looking at Wallin gave him ample time to be able to launch those attacks, to think about what he was doing and do what he wanted to do. If he's fighting a pressure fighter who's coming on him just as much as he's coming on them, that's when we see Chisora struggle, like against Joyce. Against someone like Wallin, gives him all the time in the world, lets him do what he wants, then he can just have a field day with him. Simple as. So that's my thoughts on this fight. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed the video, people. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. Until next time, people, I will leave it there. Peace.